The music stopped before I even realized I had stopped walking, my hand still locked in the grip of the man I had called my father for 27 years, though in that moment his touch felt unfamiliar, almost distant, as if something invisible had already separated us, and the entire wedding hall fell into a strange, suffocating silence, just as a trembling voice rose from the back of the room, cutting through the air like a blade, telling them not to let me get married without knowing who I really was. And every guest turned at once while my heart began to pound violently against my chest, my fiancé Daniel leaning closer in confusion as I stood frozen in my white dress, unable to move, unable to breathe, watching as a woman I had never seen before stepped forward slowly, her eyes filled with tears and something deeper, something that felt like recognition, and before anyone could stop her, she said the words that shattered my entire world in a single second, claiming that the people who raised me were not my real parents, and that I belonged to her, and the bouquet slipped from my fingers, scattering across the aisle as whispers erupted around us, while my mother, no, the woman I had always believed was my mother, stood up in panic and demanded security remove her. But the woman's voice broke again as she shouted that even my name was not the one I was born with, and something inside me cracked open as I shouted for everyone to stop, my voice shaking as I turned toward my parents and asked them what she meant. But they couldn't answer, and that silence told me everything I needed to know, leaving me standing there in front of hundreds of people, realizing I didn't even know who I was anymore. I begged them not to make me ask for the truth of my own life, my voice trembling as tears filled my eyes, and my mother finally whispered that they had planned to tell me someday, but her words only made something inside me snap as I demanded to know when exactly they thought the right time would come to tell me I wasn't really their daughter. My voice echoing through the hall as Daniel tried to calm me, promising we would figure everything out together, but I pulled my hand away because I needed answers before anything else. And then the woman stepped closer, her entire body shaking, as she revealed that the name she had given me at birth was Lily, a name that felt strangely familiar the moment it left her lips, like a forgotten memory trying to surface. And she told me that I had been taken from her when she was young and helpless, that she had been promised I would have a better life, but also promised she would see me again, promises that were never kept. And I turned back to my parents, my voice breaking as I asked if it was true, and my father finally nodded with tears in his eyes, admitting they had adopted me privately, which only made my heart sink further as I realized what that really meant. And my mother tried to defend it by saying they loved me and gave me everything, but I couldn't stop myself from shouting that they had taken everything from me instead. My identity, my past, my real mother, leaving me feeling like the ground beneath me was collapsing. The room spun around me as I struggled to breathe, the weight of everything pressing down on my chest until I could barely stand it anymore, and I muttered that I needed air before running out of the hall, lifting my dress as I escaped the whispers and the stares, leaning against a pillar outside while gasping for breath, my mind repeating the name Lily over and over again, wondering if that was truly me, or if I was still the person I had always believed myself to be. Questioning whether identity was something given or something lived, and after a few moments Daniel found me, standing beside me in silence before gently telling me that we would figure everything out together, his calm presence grounding me just enough to keep me from falling apart completely. But when I looked at him and asked if he still wanted to marry me after everything, he gave a soft, steady answer that it didn't matter what my name was because the person he loved hadn't changed. And even though his words comforted me, I knew deep down that I couldn't move forward until I understood my past, until I knew who I had been before becoming who I was now. Hours later, after most of the guests had left and the grand celebration had turned into a quiet, heavy aftermath, I sat down with both women across from me, the one who had raised me and the one who had given birth to me, feeling like I was caught between two lives that didn't quite fit together, and I asked them to tell me everything, forcing myself to listen as they revealed the truth about the desperate circumstances, the private arrangement, the years of silence driven by fear and guilt, and when it was over, I felt both shattered and strangely clearer, understanding that my birth mother had come that day because she couldn't let me build a new life on a hidden past. And when I turned to the parents who raised me and told them they should have trusted me with the truth, my mother broke down completely, admitting they were terrified of losing me, and I answered quietly that they had almost lost me anyway by hiding it for so long, leaving us all sitting there in the painful honesty that should have existed years ago. The next morning, I stood alone in front of the mirror, still wearing the same wedding dress, but feeling like a completely different person, staring at my reflection as I tried to piece together the fragments of my identity. And after a long silence, I whispered to myself that maybe I didn't have to choose between the two names, that maybe I could be both Lily and the person I had been raised to be, carrying both truths instead of losing one. And for the first time since everything had fallen apart, I felt a small sense of clarity, knowing that my story hadn't ended at that altar, but had only just begun. And if this moment touched your heart and you want more emotional stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and stay with us for more journeys that remind us how powerful the truth can be.